Absolutely.
Ladies and
Awesome.
gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Simon Says podcast. Today I have Matthew Williams from BeSeen Content. Matthew, how are we doing?
Fucking awesome. How are you? Oh, can I swear or is
You
that?
can, you can, don't worry, mate. It's all good. Spotify
Yeah,
still, as long as you,
I'm awesome.
it's good. I'm glad to hear it, mate. Today we're going to be
How are
talking
you?
about, I'm well, thank you, bro. I'm well. I'm just kind of settling in from the travels, went on to the next location. Still in Thailand, but just moved accommodation.
Nice.
And getting to grips with work and everything else as well. Complicated sometimes, bro. But on today's call, today's podcast, we're gonna be talking about perfectionism, standing out with your own content, what most people do wrong with their content, starting out as a content creator, and then a day in the life of Matthew Williams from BeSeen. But
Oh,
before we
it's
jump
happening.
into all of that, Matthew, let's
Hmm.
talk about where you started and how you got to BeSeen.
Awesome. Awesome. So basically, I was a brokey, mate. I was like, I think about 18 months ago, something like that. I was complete brokey. I did have a podcast, I had my own podcast, Club Iron. And I started that because I wanted to start something. I was really frustrated with where I was in life. I was working in Tesco, a UK supermarket, delivering food, and I was like this is not for me. Like I want to do something better with my life. And you see, like as you get older, you get more exposed to things online. You see people living life on their terms. You see, people have all these things. And I was like, why can't I have that? Why am I stuck in a Mercedes a Mercedes van, sorry, driving food around? So I reached out to good friend of mine, Alex Knott, who had his own podcast at the time. And basically, we went out for food to a restaurant in like an hour away from us, and we were like I want to start something. What can we do? And he was like, "Well, and you start a podcast if you you want to do that." And I was like, "Yeah, cool." Went around the next day, um, bought the rights to like Club Iron, like on the company's house and stuff like that, and then started shooting podcasts, and then obviously from there things go on, you meet new people, and then I was like, shit, I want to do this full time.
Mm.
I love doing this stuff, having conversations with people. So I was like, I want to do this full time. How can I do it? How can I do it the quickest way? Now, obviously, with podcasting, there's no money in it. It's not unless you're like Joe Rogan or something. Then there's no, avenues for finance. So we were like, right, what can we do instead? So we created a media business, which was called Alma Cinematics at the time. Which
Yeah.
was basically eat what you kill, just videography. And then I met the notorious Josh Dexter,
Mm-hmm.
and then things went from there. And then we went to BeSeen.
Awesome.
I don't know if that answers your question, but in how I got to where I am,
Mm.
just by trying new things,
Yeah, yeah.
basically.
No, I love it, mate. Obviously, at the beginning, that was Club Iron, where you started out with like George Osborne and people like that. You had on the podcast as well. So, how did you find that initial sort of growth coming out of, starting from complete scratch and then getting into, talking to influencers and having a bit more of a platform?
Yeah, of course. Scary, mate. To be honest
Mm.
with you, like you mentioned George Osborne there. Interesting, little story with you. But when I was going through this phase of like, I said I wanted to do more and be more. George was someone who I actually looked at on YouTube, and I was like, oh, like he's living a good life. Like the guy just makes YouTube videos, he coaches, he competes. Obviously, I'm not into competitive bodybuilding, but I saw the freedom that he had, and I wanted that, just living life on my own terms. And I actually reached out to him I think it was the first day that I launched my podcast. And I texted him saying, just launched my podcast, really inspired by you. Would love to have you on one day. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. That's epic. And that was in July
Mm.
of last year. So 6 months down the line, November time roughly, we actually had him on, which was quite a monumental moment.
Yeah,
But
bet.
what was your question? Sorry, I went on a bit of a ramble there.
No, no, I love it, mate. It was more so just like your sort of initial feelings around starting all of that because like I mentioned, perfectionism is going to be a bit of a topic that we go into, and a lot of the time when you're
Yeah.
starting out with things, people procrastinate, or they procrastination disguised as perfection. And a lot of
Yeah.
the time, just launching something or getting something started at the very beginning is a real area of contention for a lot of people. And I'm sure there's people that would be interested in, just having a bit of an insight to what that initial dive board moment was,
Yeah, epic. I think that when I started out, I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Mm,
So for me to sort of be like obsessed with perfection with that, it wasn't really the case. I was
mm,
quite like I'm quite I'm the sort of person that I just want to go all the time. I'm not sure if you're the same, but I'm just like I just want to try something new. I want to do something new. If I have an idea, I like to act in it quickly
yeah,
and just get it done because I feel like like linking this to perfectionism and procrastination. Um, I think life's too short to perfect things straight away. You're not gonna if you do something, you're not gonna do it perfect first time. Like that's
yeah,
just not gonna happen,
mm,
realistically speaking.
yeah. I think
So
that's
so for me,
a thing that holds a lot of people back, though, you know?
yeah, I
Mm,
think if you're thinking of starting something out, I think the best course of action to do is to accept it's not going to be perfect,
mm,
realize that you're going to make mistakes, and then just try it anyway. Because I mean, if you say you want to start something out and you try and it just fails completely, well, you're in the same position anyway, but you've got a lesson that you've learned.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. Wise words there, mate. I think a lot of people have the same mentality when they start to coming into the gym, and it's a case of, oh, I'm not where I want to be physically yet, so I don't want to go into a gym. And it's like that is the stepping stone, like you're almost holding yourself back from actually making good progress from not making those mistakes. Learn from
Mhm.
those mistakes, make them. They're valuable. Every mistake that you make is a valuable thing that's gone through in your life.
I agree. I agree.
Mm,
I've come across that with my time as well because I'm into like BJJ and martial arts.
mhm,
Um, and I spoke to a lot of people who've expressed interest to me about starting BJJ, and
mm,
they're like, "Oh, I need to get my fitness up first. Like, I need to go running first." I'm like, "You're not going to have the same experience if you try to mimic it first. You just need
mm.
to go head first into it and actually try it instead
Yeah,
of trying to build up and do the foreplay if you know what I mean. Like it's just something you've got to just dive into. And I think that's the same with like any sort of venture,
mhm,
business related, fitness related. I
mhm.
think you've just got to go head on into it and actually make the mistakes because when you do something and you make the mistakes, you actually realize that like that is probably more helpful than not making mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You learn from those mistakes, and it's the same as if you want to get good at benching, bench more.
Mm.
Like you can do all
Yeah,
the fancy exercises to like build up your stabilizers and that kind of stuff, but really, like to really get good at the movement, you got to do more of it. Same as business. If you want to get good at calls to action and having business calls, you've got to have more of them and be able to experience them. We've both had the pleasure of working with Josh, and I think that also teaches you a lot about um, getting experience with calls. Obviously, having somebody to be able to give you that support and teach you some of the lessons that they've already learned, valuable, very, very valuable. But equally, making those mistakes and not letting perfectionism hold you back from acting and getting those things, the balls rolling, getting the momentum going. Certainly, I think is
agree.
something that holds so many people back in this world.
Hmm.
Mm,
I mean, I completely agree. It's a paralysis by analysis.
mm,
If you to analyze everything and think about everything, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not, making the steps, making the mistakes. Because like I actually enjoy making mistakes.
mm,
It's not nice in the moment, but once you get over that like initial emotional reaction, it's actually quite nice because you're like, oh shit, I did this or I did that and I shouldn't have. But
yeah,
then next time you're not going to do it. Like I've made mistakes with podcasting, with guests, and in the moment, yeah, it's a bit embarrassing.
yeah,
Even on sales calls, I made mistakes on sales calls, but it's embarrassing in the moment. But after, you're like, I'm glad that happened because down the road,
mm.
it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, I'm not going to let that happen again. So, what would you
Mm.
say would be the thing that most people do wrong when they start out with content creation and that side of the social media world?
I think trying to talk about everything. I
Mm,
think that's one thing that I've seen a lot of people do. There's a few things. I mean, you've got trying to talk about everything. You've got uh, actually, doing the content, not putting yourself out there, not being nervous in front of the camera, which is completely normal.
mm,
That's something I used to be like. I mean, I used to be really nervous in front of the camera, really nervous. I was like shitting myself. But I think it's just one of the things where you get used to it. Like it's like anything else.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like, the biggest mistakes, I would say not doing it and trying to thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
Like thinking perfectly. Like if you look at like some people's reels first off, they start off, they're not very good.
Mm.
But then as they just get in front of the camera, they're doing more, they're doing more, they're doing more. You know, their content just levels up naturally. I mean, if you look at your content, I looked through the start of your page, but the way you edit your content is really good. Like
Thank you, bro.
there's been a couple of reels I've seen, I'm like, damn, this man is quite good. There's just ways it is, and the way you are on camera, and thinking that everything has to be really perfect. I noticed with yourself lately, you posted bloopers.
Yep.
Like that is awesome. That is actually, you know, more that helps you build more trust than anything, because you're showing people that you're not perfect.
Yeah, and it's the relatability. Everybody does it, you know. Like people are on board with stuff that they can relate to. But my content journey, like, bro, I started making YouTube videos when I was like 20, like when YouTube was really young. Like this was 10 years ago now, bro. And like it was, I built up like a decent little following and subscribers. I think I had like 3,500 subscribers, which back then
Ah,
was like, you know, that was quite big.
huge.
And that was mainly through just doing eating challenges and like editing videos on iMovie and just
Yeah.
posting them. And I didn't really do too much on Instagram. That was more so just a little side hobby that I did. And
Hmm.
then Instagram came around. I was like, I started off with a 70/30 fitness page where I was just putting out little workouts, and I look back on some of the photos that I took of myself, bro, and I cringe. I'm like, I do the Ziz poses and all that kind of stuff, and you know, bro, I've matured a lot in my content. I like to think.
It's the same as everyone else. I mean, I look at my like I'm 22,
Mm.
so I haven't been you know posting for that long. But I look at the stuff that I posted when I was like 18 on
Mm.
Instagram, and I'm like, I'm thankful that this can't won't see the light again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you just got to make mistakes, and you got to know what's best for you. I've done eating challenges myself. I did the 10K calorie challenge, failed miserably,
Oh yeah.
but you just got to make mistakes. It's trial and error, like you said there. I mean, you were doing the Z's pose, you were doing this, you were doing that, and it's just about fine tuning it and trying different things so you know what works for you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I see people make a lot of mistakes on. They don't try things.
Mm.
They feel like they've got have to have this fixed mindset, and they've only got to do one avenue of content. Like I've changed since we started BeSeen in June, I want to say, like officially started. We've gone about 4 different directions with it. We're like, we try this, we try that, we try this. I think one thing you've got to learn to do with content is actually be able to pivot and try new things instead of thinking I need to just hammer this and just go with this, because you know the world changes, things change on social media. Like look at AI now.
Yep.
Like the AI is coming into the world. I'm not that cleared up on AI. I use it, you know, for just generating clips. It's handy.
Mm.
Alex is more the AI guy, but I mean, content's about to change with AI. There's gonna be like a revolution of it. Mark Fox posted a video this morning, where he was saying that this isn't even him. Like he was in the
Oh yeah.
camera in the
Yeah, yeah.
frame. Did you see that?
I've seen similar videos where they're like, "Oh, this person's not real," and then actually the voice is not real, and they're not even looking at the camera. And like AI is super. I use it every day, bro. I use AI for all of my captions. I like if I'm writing out a script, I'll
Dude.
use AI. Everything. But it's one of those things
Mm,
that just saves a little bit of time in your day and can, you know, be a really powerful tool. If it's used in the wrong way,
yeah.
you know, you can end up just looking like the same as every other content because you're just copying and pasting the captions that you're given. I try and avoid doing that. I put my own spin on it, but it gives you a bit of a template to use, which is handy.
I've seen a lot of people do that with that's another mistake that people use with content creation as well, is leaning on to something too much. I've come across like a lot of things online from people that I know, and then you read their captions, and it's like totally different to how they speak. Have you
Yeah.
seen any case examples of that? And it's like I'm
So
like,
many.
did you just gain an English literature degree overnight, or it's
Yeah.
like have you done something different? But I think leaning on to something and relying on something is isn't good. Same with life in general. I've done that myself in the past. I made that mistake of relying on things and not being like self-sufficient and be able to do it myself.
Yeah, 100%. I think like it's good to delegate roles and definitely make your life easier through delegation, but for sure you need to be able to still be true to yourself and be able to actually create that content without it if you needed to, or not become too reliant on one avenue. And same thing goes for like platforms as well, like Instagram. That's basically my main platform, but a few months ago I started posting on Facebook because I was like, what happens if Instagram disappears? What happens if Facebook disappears? Like it could happen. Like TikTok's been banned in America now, like so that whole industry. Yeah, like there's so many things which are changing with especially TikTok because of the way in which they use data and stuff like that. It's a bit of a wild way that the Chinese have used, but that's a slight little conspiracy theory. We could go down a rabbit hole. Like,
I was going to ask you, do you think TikTok has ruined lives?
oh, bro, I certainly do. I don't have it anymore. Like, I still used to post on it a lot, but when I came over to Thailand, I had to change my SIM in my phone, and then my SIM was that phone was linked to my TikTok, and then now I don't have it. And I was like, I actually like not having it. I just waste so much time on that. Even if I go on there to post something, you get stuck in a hole and you're like, fuck, I just spent a minute of my time that I could be using other stuff. And if it frustrates me, like I drop my phone, I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to put out content.
Get away.
I don't want to consume it. But
it's so easy to do that. I mean, like it's literally designed for that. Like if you look at Instagram Reels and you look at TikTok, I don't know if you're probably aware of this, but they've designed it in a way where it gives you the same hit of dopamine if you're in a casino. That it's just so easy to do with a scroll. And I find with TikTok, it's brought a sort of false sense of reality for people. Like if you look at, I'm sure it was present with you in the fitness industry. So many people on TikTok that are like fake natties that claim to be natural, and it just absolutely warps people's reality of what they can actually do with their fitness, with their body. And I think that's social media is one of them where it's a good tool, but it's like a car. I mean, you can drive safely in a car and be responsible, or be irresponsible and kill yourself.
Yeah, but you get taught to drive. You don't get taught how to use social media, and it's one of those things.
Correct.
Like it's such an addictive tool and like you said, it warps your reality to the point where people have body dysmorphia if they're in great shape and they're like, you got into the gym to just add a few kilos of muscle. You've surpassed that now, but you still have the image of, oh, I should look like Chris Bumstead because that's what's always on your screen. Like every motivational clip is Chris Bumstead or some other massive bodybuilder, and you think that's reality, and like that's not reality to you. It doesn't have to be, but your world is what you create it to be, through the content that you consume and the environment that you have.
100%. That's one thing I'm big on as well is transparency. Like, I mean, if you look at Instagram now, you see a lot of these people who are like morning routines. You see like ridiculous morning routines. Have you seen the guy who says like, he does like 20 minutes of reading, then he at 4 a.m. and then he goes onto the treadmill with his wife, and then he does weights, and then he's all with his kids by like 6 a.m. I'm like that. If you're like naive to that sort of stuff, then you see that thing and it like poisons your mind. So you're like, shit, I should be up at 3 a.m. I'm losing. And I think a large thing with Instagram is just trying to be as transparent as you can. I'm a big believer in that because everyone has bad days. Everyone has a bad day. And if you show all of the good and don't show any of the bad, you're just giving people that false sense of reality. Like for instance, last week, there were a couple of days last week where I didn't hit the goals that I wanted to hit. I was lying in bed, I was eating sugar, I was eating shit. And and I'm obviously saying this on a podcast now where, I don't want people to think I'm this like massive militaristic disciplined person, because I mean 80% of the time I am, but there is that 20% of the time where I'm not.
Yeah, you're human. Yeah. I think people, they put an unrealistic expectation on themselves because of the highlight reel that social media is. But equally, to caveat your point, if you are somebody that puts out on social media like the anxiety memes, the memes that kind of reinforce that negative mindset that you have.
Mm.
Like in my world, I'm like, that is only positively reinforcing negative stuff. Like there's definitely value with, you know, being completely real with yourself and you know, taking time away from social media as well. But
Mm.
if you're like constantly putting forward this narrative that you are a certain way, guess what? You're going to be that certain way. And if you continually like reinforce that behavior, saying, "Oh, I'm going through this and this and this," that's good to share with your close friends. That's good to share with your
Mm.
family. But if you put out
Mm.
videos of yourself crying, I don't think there's ever a valid reason to put yourself crying on social media. I don't get
I
it.
agree.
Anytime I see a video like that, I'm like, it blows my mind. I'm like, there's potentially millions of people watching this, and you are at your
Mm.
most vulnerable state, crying about, I don't know, whatever. It could be anything. But I'm like,
Mhm.
there's you're going to be remembered from that. You could turn into a meme and be remembered for the rest of your life because of that one video. Be careful
I
what you put
agree.
out.
I think, yeah, I agree with that, mate. And I think it's good not to go too far to one side. I think it's good to
Hmm.
strike, you know, a balance with it all. Um, I definitely agree with you with the, you know, telling your close friends and family things. Like, there's definitely things that, you know, I could have put out with social media that would have painted me in that way. But I think keeping it private, keeping that part of your life private is essential. Um, I don't think people realize how deep social media goes. Say, for instance, like take us for example.
Hmm.
I'm from Wales, and you're currently in Thailand.
Yep.
So the distance between Thailand and Wales, I don't know what that is in miles. I'm assuming it's in the thousands.
Yes, like
Well, obviously,
16,000.
16,000 miles. That is, it's a crazy amount. So you follow me on Instagram, I follow you. I put up a reel about something, and you can see it in Thailand. Like, if you can see it 16,000 miles away, like, what's the impact of how close people can see it to me? Like,
Yep.
there's people who can see my stuff who live 16,000 miles away. Like,
Yep.
you can touch every corner of the globe with what you put out.
And it's wild. And sometimes that can hold you back from making content in some ways because you're like, oof, like,
Yeah.
what if hundreds of people see this? And it's
Do
part
you
of
get
that
any
risk.
anxiety with content?
Not really. Like it comes very second nature to me now. Like I've put out daily content every day for the last probably 3 years, and it's gotten to a
Okay.
point sometimes where I get a bit of if I know I haven't got a video ready to post, now I just recycle an old video. But it was in the past where I was like, shit, like this is something like almost. So I was in the fire service for 4 years, 4.5 years, and then sometimes
Damn.
that little like flick of it's go time comes into me when I'm like, oh shit, I haven't put up a video yet, and I'm like doing all
Right.
these things, and I'm like, bro,
Scrambling.
chill out. It's a video that probably isn't even going to be relevant tomorrow. Like
Hmm.
content does get seen by lots of people, but it also it's gone the next day. Probably nobody's going to see it unless somebody comes to your page and they're really invested and they're going to scroll through your old content. After 24 hours, it's next. Like nobody's probably going to see it,
Hmm.
and that
So
is
you were in the service, you,
yeah, 4.5 years, bro. South Wales.
and that mentality has come over to, you know, obviously online.
Sometimes, most of the time, I would say like you know the general discipline and practice that you have carries over to like my training side of things, but the like it's there's a call come through and you've got to go that like emergency sometimes
Urgency.
yeah the urgency sometimes that can carry over to like stuff which doesn't need to be you know
Interesting, because I've never had that sort of urgency mindset. Like,
mm.
you know, being in the fire service, like, imagine there being like quite a lot of chaos and like sort of panic with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say panic. Like you obviously don't want to panic in those situations.
Yeah.
That's like the last thing you want to do. Like imagine a firefighter or a paramedic turns up and then starts panicking. It would make you more panic.
Yeah, it makes it
But
very easy.
yeah, but yeah, I mean the adrenaline system. Like you certainly, if an alarm goes off or something like that, I'm like, what's the alarm for? I need to know.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Damn. Okay, I wouldn't imagine what that feels like. It's like you're just like
It's almost
wired,
like
if
a
that makes
fight or flight response, but you're not really aware of when it's going to kick in.
damn.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty interesting actually.
Yeah,
I'm trying to imagine what it would feel like.
to be honest, like I've never been somebody that's labeled myself of like suffering with anxiety or anything like that. But if I would say if that was something which I was more I don't know, if I didn't have such a negative connotation to what the word anxiety means, I would probably label some of the things in my life like that. But more so, it's like, you know, an adrenaline boost, or like your heart rate picks up and your
Yeah.
breathing picks up, and like those are just normal bodily functions, which, you know, are because of something changing, excitement, happiness, like anxiety. All of those things are very closely like knitted together, and people can be excited for
Yeah.
something
They're
and
like,
label anxious and then give them a negative feeling rather than a positive feeling.
mm. It's like when before I hopped on this podcast, like this is my first ever guest podcast I've ever done. And I did have like a bit of anxiety, a bit of like,
Mm,
like the nervous
yeah,
unsettledness in your stomach.
yeah,
But I think that's
nervousness.
good because it makes you feel alive. Because I was
Mm,
thinking, I was like, what happens if I go into this podcast and like it's just complete crickets? Like it's just so hard to talk to people or something like that. But obviously it's not. But you
yeah,
overthink things. It's
and
similar to people doing that with content. They're like they have it there, they're ready to post, and they're like, what if, what if?
mhm.
I'm like, just post it. Like you said, after like 72 hours, like it's chances are it's not going to get brought up again,
Yep, yep, yep.
unless someone has a serious stalk. I had this feeling yesterday. I posted my first ever like sort of vlog on my own personal channel.
Mhm.
Do you know like the sort of the vlog is like the sort of like Sam Sulek sort of style
Oh, okay, yeah,
of YouTube video,
long form.
just raw,
Yeah,
just because I want to start showcasing more of my life and showcasing what I'm actually doing, because I feel like a lot of people, if you're outside looking in on someone's life, like they're pretty interested in what you're doing, like what your day looks like.
mm,
Because I'm pretty sure you've had it with yourself being completely free. You're traveling. People are probably interested in like, what are you actually doing, Simon? Like what does your life look like?
yeah, yeah. And like I think it's funny. Sometimes you'll see like on your story views or something like that. You'd be like, you go and see somebody that you've not spoken to for years and years and years, but they just watch every single one of your stories, and you're like, oh, people are
Mm.
invested in this. Like, it's just a life in which I live every day. Like, it doesn't like a lot of the time to me, I'm just like, oh, like okay, so I'm traveling, I'm going to the next place or da 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 da. But like for a lot of people that are just in the monotony of their own life and like a bit bored, it's an entertainment sometimes, you know, to just watch somebody else doing a different life, living a different
Yeah, I
style.
agree.
Mm,
I agree. It's huge because people don't realize this, right? This just to tie this into content creation, so I'm not rambling on.
mhm,
Like people don't realize like there's so much stuff you can show people that they're actually interested in.
mhm,
Like people think that all people want to see is like you test driving a Lamborghini or like something like that. But what people are actually interested in is the nitty gritty of like what you do.
mhm,
Um, some of the videos that I watch on YouTube, like Sam Sulek, right, for example, let's take him. He's like a phenomenon
mhm.
on YouTube. He's picked up huge amounts of traction in such a short space of time. All the guy does is just show people his gym session.
Yeah, it's just long form
There's
content.
no
Have a chat, relaxed. Mm,
there's no like fancy editing, no like videography involved. It's just raw and uncut. And I
mm,
think that's another mistake that people make when it comes to content creation, is that they think that everything has to be like really to like a high standard of things. But sometimes the best content is just very casual,
mm,
just like content like this, just us having a casual conversation
mhm,
and just showing the parts of your life that are just like super casual.
mm.
I was doing a vlog now, and today I'm actually filming a vlog now, and I'm just showing people like what I'm doing in my life. I'm having a coffee. I'm actually fasting now as well. I'm doing a 24-hour fast,
Oh, nice.
and people have said that they want to see like what do you do
Mm.
day to day.
How are you finding the fast? I've done a few 48-hour ones.
Oh, breeze, mate.
Yeah.
I think it's just all up there, really, isn't it? Like I've had a coffee. I've had some water.
Mm,
It's just all mental, to be honest with you, mate.
Bit
I
of
think.
salt as well,
How do you
that
find it?
helps sometimes. I like
Mm.
I like fasting. Like, to be honest, the less I have to eat, the better. Like, eating tends to be a chore
Yeah.
for me most of the time. Like, I've always had a high metabolism, always had to eat a lot of food in order to put on weight. And so,
Mhm.
like, if I can use something like liquid calories, smoothies, things like that to make my life easier, I do. So when I have the choice to fast, or that comes up as something which
Yeah.
I
No.
sometimes do just to break the digestive system a little bit, I
Yeah.
enjoy it. Dieting, I enjoy. it's, it's never really been something which I've like seen as a chore. Like, dieting to me is actually more enjoyable probably than gaining.
Yeah, I was a fat kid when I was younger, so dieting to me is like the worst thing ever.
Mm,
I don't like being hungry.
mm,
But like you said there, you said about like resetting the digestive system. Obviously I'm not a fitness coach, so I'm not qualified to talk with this at all. But
mm.
I saw Hamza, the YouTuber.
Yeah, yeah, I know
I
Hamza.
saw a video of his where he was saying that he recently ate like sugar. So he did a 24-hour fast to reset his like his stomach. If I
Mm.
don't know if there's any truth in that, but
Glycemic
that's
index.
why I'm doing it,
Mm.
because I want to sort of just cleanse my body. I'm going to go to sauna later as well, just to like detox, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And like, even those things sometimes can be a bit of like a mental detox as well. It's like you have a lot more clarity when you're fasting. It can be quite a beneficial thing. There's not many scenarios with clients that I actually recommend fasting, because I think majority of people actually have quite a poor relationship with food when they are dieting. And to do something like a 24-hour fast, for or intermittent fasting in general, I feel like can encourage more of the like binge restrict cycle, because you're holding off from eating, you're getting really hungry, and then you have this big meal, and then
Mm.
often that meal, then you're not satisfied, because most of the time food actually isn't really that satisfying, and then you want to have some more. So then you go over, and then you continue to binge and restrict, and it just continues to go down that cycle. So yeah, breaking that habit for a lot of people's eating can actually be a benefit, I found, because I've coached a few people through eating disorders, which is a very
Mm.
rewarding process.
Yeah, because that intrigues me, because like your mind is just like it's your biggest weapon, and it's your biggest
Mm,
enemy as well. Now that's one thing I'm conscious of. I'm trying to conquer my mind, because you have to be in control of your mind if you want to progress anywhere, like
100%.
anywhere in life.
Mm,
There's been certain times where like I've been majorly let down by my own thoughts, my own actions, and if I can't align my mind with what I want to achieve, then I've got no hope of getting there. If I
mm,
want to be, earning like 10K a month and doing all that, but then I'm not getting up, I'm not doing the work,
mm.
my eating's crap,
Yeah,
I'm never going to get there ever.
I think it's also the
It's
narrative in
just,
which you tell yourself as well. Like, if you have the narrative
okay.
of "I'll never get there," and you have the narrative of um, almost like looking at things like a chore. So, like, for example, dieting. I look at dieting actually as a pleasurable thing, because I have to eat less
Okay.
food. But a
Mm.
lot of people look at dieting as a negative thing because they have to eat less food. But same thing with your work. If you've got X amount of hours to put into it, and you're like, I've got 10 hours to do today, I've got 100 things on my list. Or you go, I've got 100 opportunities to make some money, or 100 opportunities to progress.
Switching that framing.
Mm,
I'm big time on that, because recently I was going through a bit of a rough patch with like business and stuff.
mhm,
Just up here, and I was telling myself, I was like, there are people out there, especially in the UK, who have to get up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, go out in the rain onto a building site, pissing down rain. They have to labour for 10 hours a day, and then they have to come home to kids
yep,
and sort them out. And I'm like, I'm a 22-year-old who is in control of his own time,
yep,
and like essentially do what I want. Like, why am I being such a knob to myself? Like, it's you've got to switch that frame in your
yeah,
mind, and instill like you said, frame it as you're a winner. I've actually got a whiteboard above my desk, and I've got two quotes written on there, and I put losing is not an option, and quitting doesn't exist. And those are two things that I sort of live by. I think if you give yourself the option to quit, you're gonna quit eventually.
Cool.
But I think if you just label yourself as I don't quit, I'm this sort of person who gets it done. I think that is like a good framework to succeed.
100%, mate. That's a good mindset to have. I definitely think that. And like what you've said there of kind of giving you that narrative of I don't quit and I'm gonna win this already puts you above somebody with that negative mindset. You know, like exactly same as you. I had a very similar conversation with a friend who's also an online coach and was a bit
Okay.
demotivated because clients weren't working, or they weren't putting in as much effort as he was wanting them to put in. And I was like, okay, bro, but at the same time, you're not doing that job that you worked 5 years ago that you hated, and you're not
Absolutely.
doing the job in which hundreds of other people are doing, which they hate. You've got the flexibility in your life. You run your own hours. Like, instead of focusing on what you don't have right now, focus on
What you
all
do.
the positives that you do have and make more of those positives.
I agree. I look at you're actually someone who I look at as well as like an example of the life I want to live, because I see you traveling,
Thank you, bro.
Thailand, Australia, and that is awesome.
Mm.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with you as well, is because like I your life is something that I'm really not jealous of, because I don't want to be a jealous person, but something I look at and I'm like, that is a life that I would want to live. Traveling around the place,
It's
being
possible,
able
bro.
to go away when absolutely,
Mm. I like.
absolutely.
I'm not ridiculously smart or anything. Like, I've got a very creative mind, but like I'm dyslexic. Like, I didn't do amazing in school. Like, I did pretty average. But it was all just literally like I had a bit of an idea of what I wanted to do. I wrote that stuff down and I was like, okay, like I have everything that I need to make this happen. I just got to make it happen.
I agree. There's nothing to do but to do. Like, you just got to do it. If you want the life that you want to live, this is something I need to tell myself. You just need to
Mm.
do what it requires, and do
Yeah.
what it sets out, what you set out for
Yeah.
yourself. But
Don't make it
bit of a
a
deep one there.
negotiable as well. No, it's true, bro. Like, no negotiables. Like, that is what you're gonna do. And people will come around in your life and they'll tell you, oh, don't do that. Like, that's a stupid financial decision, or there's no security and all of this and all that. And it's like, okay, but they don't want to do it. Fine. But if you want to do
Yeah,
it,
there's no
go
security
and do
in
it.
life anyway. You
Mm,
could wake up tomorrow, and well, you could not wake up tomorrow. So there's no actual security in life. Security doesn't exist.
exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
a mindset, I think. I could go
Unfortunately,
on
this
all.
call is going to end very, very soon, bro. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. And I feel
Mate,
like we could probably do a part two.
100%. I hope I've been able to deliver some value.
Mm.
Obviously, it's my first guest podcast, so I'm honoured to have spent it chatting to you, Simon. So thank you for your time as well. I appreciate that.
Of
Definitely
course,
a part two.
definitely part two. Good. That sounds good, mate. We will book that in, and we will get another part two sorted for maybe in 2 weeks' time, because we've got a new guest next week.
I appreciate that, Simon, and thank you very much.